Thank you for subscribing to us. There is a mathematical certainty that almost every single person commuting to work right now is just actively ignoring.
Oh, absolutely. It's the elephant in the room.
Right. And it's this idea that your day job is mathematically incapable of making you wealthy. I mean, it is structurally designed to keep you exactly where you are. You're trading a depreciating asset, which is your time for a fixed wage.
Yeah, totally fixed wage.
But what if that 9 to 5 isn't actually a trap? Like, what if it's the ultimate seed capital for a secret parallel economy?
It's really the ultimate paradox of modern adult life, isn't it?
It really is.
We've engineered this societal default where just basic survival consumes, the vast majority of our waking hours and our cognitive load, too.
Oh, 100%. Just the mental energy of it.
Exactly. We are so utterly consumed by the sheer mechanics of just making a living that the concept of actually designing a life feels like, a luxury. Like it's reserved for venture capitalists or trust fund kids or something.
Right. Like you have to be born into it to even have the time to think about it.
Yeah. But the way out of that cycle isn't about abandoning your responsibilities or burning the boats in some dramatic, reckless leap of faith. The real escape velocity is found in how you weaponize the margins of your life.
Weaponize the margins. I love that phrasing. And that is exactly the architectural blueprint we're analyzing today for this deep dive.
It's going to be a good one.
We are diving deep into the mechanics of Jim Rohn's foundational philosophy, the magic of part-time work, or, as it's widely known and studied in its Persian translation, S&C and Chef.
Yes, a massive piece of work globally.
Truly. And specifically, we are grounding our analysis today in the incredibly meticulous 9th edition published by Zanaviz. It was translated and edited by Tauhid Fariduni, Amir Reza Hashemi, and Ramin Dargahi.
Yeah, they did an exceptional job with it.
They really did. Their specific work on this edition makes these universal economic and psychological concepts just incredibly accessible. So our mission today, right now, is to extract the functional structural knowledge from it for you, the listener.
Exactly. Our objective is to just dissect Rohn's blueprint for financial independence. But we have to be absolutely clear up front here.
Yeah, definitely. Set the ground rules.
We are not discussing a get-rich-quick scheme.
No, not at all.
And we are definitely not discussing that naive, often disastrous modern advice to just, quit your job and follow your passion.
Oh, man. The worst advice. Just quit and it'll all work out.
Right. It's terrible advice. We are exploring the mastery of a highly specific, highly leveraged dual-track system, working full-time on your living while aggressively dedicating your part-time margins to building a fortune.
The dual-track system.
Yes. And the underlying mechanism that makes this dual-track system function at all is targeted, relentless personal development.
Okay, so let's attack this central dichotomy first. Because if you don't understand this, and I mean really wrap your head around it, the rest of the strategy just collapses.
It totally falls apart.
Right. It's the distinction between the living and the fortune.
Yeah.
Because structurally, our entire educational and corporate system just conflates the two.
They blur the lines completely.
They do. We are conditioned to believe that our living is our fortune. We think if we just grind out a 5% raise, or if we work 60 hours instead of 40, the W-2 wage will magically undergo some sort of alchemy and turn into a fortune.
Yeah, like you'll just eventually save your way to millions on a fixed salary.
Exactly. But Rohn draws a brutal mathematical line between the two, doesn't he?
He really does. And the distinction is both economic and profoundly psychological. So let's look at the economics first, right?
Do it.
A living is tied to a wage.
Oh.
And a wage is just a linear equation. 1 unit of time equals 1 unit of money.
Hour for an hour.
Right. Because of that, your income is mathematically capped by the 24-hour clock. And your physical stamina. I mean, even if you are a highly paid professional, say a surgeon or a corporate lawyer, you still hit a ceiling.
Because you literally have to sleep.
Exactly. You cannot physically work 400 hours a week. It's impossible. A fortune, however, is built on profits and equity.
Asymmetrical risk and reward.
Precisely. Profits have exponential potential. They are not strictly bound by the clock. A piece of software you code, a piece of content you create, or a sales system you build in your part-time hours that can scale to thousands of customers while you are sleeping.
Which is the dream, right? Earning while you sleep.
Right. When you start a part-time enterprise, you are stepping out of the linear wage economy and dipping your toes into the exponential profit economy.
And this is the crucial part, you're doing it with a safety net, which changes the risk profile entirely.
That is the absolute genius of the dual-track system. The psychological relief of knowing your rent is paid, your groceries are bought, and your health care is covered by your full-time job. That is an immense strategic advantage.
It's massive. It changes everything about how you operate.
It allows you to build your part-time fortune without that suffocating desperation that historically just kills early-stage businesses.
Desperation is a business killer.
It breeds terrible decision-making. When you are starving, you take bad clients, you discount your products, you basically reek of neediness and negotiations.
You can smell it on people.
You really can, but when your living is covered, you can afford to be strategic. You can afford to play the long game.
I want to linger on this for a second, because this completely reframes the modern worker's relationship with their employer.
It flicks it on its head.
It really does,
Yeah.
because the prevailing cultural narrative right now is highly adversarial, right? You're supposed to view your 9 to 5 as a cage, as this extraction mechanism that's just keeping you from your true potential.
The whole wage slave mentality.
Exactly. But if we apply Rohn's logic, what if your day job is actually the angel investor for your part-time fortune?
Oh, I think that is the perfect analytical lens to view this through. Think about how an angel investor functions.
Right. What do they do?
They inject capital into an enterprise, so the founder has the runway to build the product without getting evicted from their apartment.
Yes. And what does the angel investor expect in return? They expect you to deliver on your milestones, provide regular reports, and essentially, not burn the place down.
They don't want to micromanage you if you are hitting your metrics.
Exactly. And your employer is doing exactly that. They are funding your life. They're providing your operational runway, your W-2 capital, so you can play in the high-stakes sandbox of entrepreneurship on the weekends.
It's a brilliant way to look at it.
It fundamentally strips away the resentment. You aren't trapped by your paycheck. Your paycheck is your seed capital.
Let's extrapolate the behavioral consequences of that shift, too, because it's huge. When your full-time job is your W-2 angel investor, your entire posture in the corporate environment changes.
Your body language, everything.
Everything. Think about the average worker whose job is their sole source of identity and survival. The cognitive load of that dependency is crushing.
It's terrifying.
Every minor critique from a mid-level manager feels like a literal threat to their actual survival. Every missed promotion triggers an existential crisis.
Because they have no diversification of hope. They have all their eggs in this one corporate basket.
Exactly. But when you have a part-time fortune brewing in the background, your identity is decentralized. You show up to your 9 to 5 with a totally different baseline of cortisol.
You're just calmer.
Paradoxically, you actually become a far more effective employee. You aren't operating out of neurotic fear anymore. You handle office politics with a sort of, detached amusement.
Because it doesn't really matter.
Right, because frankly, you have a board meeting with yourself at 7 p.m. to discuss your own equity. The desperation evaporates. It's replaced by a quiet, simmering autonomy.
It's like operating with a covert identity. By day, you are Clark Kent, nodding along in the Q3 synergy meetings, just diligently earning your seed capital.
Yes.
But by night, you are building the actual empire. But this requires an entirely different set of mental hardware, which brings us directly to the engine of this whole operation.
The personal development piece.
Exactly. We know we want the exponential fortune, but Rohn is absolute in his assertion that the business itself isn't the engine. The self is the engine. I mean, the core mantra of the book is work hard at your job and you can make a living. Work hard on yourself and you can make a fortune.
This is where we really have to separate Rohn's philosophy from cheap motivational platitudes.
Yeah, the toxic positivity stuff.
Right. When he says work on yourself, he isn't talking about staring in the mirror reciting affirmations or merely reading self-help books to just feel good. He is identifying a brutal economic reality.
Which is what?
That your current income is an exact reflection of your current value to the marketplace.
Wow. That hurts to hear, but it's true. And if you want a fortune, you have to become a fundamentally different, more valuable asset.
Precisely. A part-time business is not actually a business. I mean, it is, but primarily, it is a forced, accelerated personal development program in disguise.
A forced program. I like that.
The revenue, the profits, the eventual financial independence, those are just lagging indicators. They are the trailing exhaust of who you have been forced to become.
Right.
To succeed in an entrepreneurial capacity, you must acquire a stack of high-leverage skills that your W-2 job is structurally designed to ensure you never need.
Let's be specific here for the listener. What kind of skills are we talking about?
Well, in a standard corporate job, labor is hyper-specialized. You do one thing. You are a cog in a machine someone else built.
You stay in your lane.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about customer acquisition or supply chain or handling a hostile rejection or copywriting or psychological resilience. You just process a spreadsheet.
Right.
But in a part-time enterprise, you are the entire machine. You have to generate the lead, execute the pitch, manage the friction of a no, and regulate your own emotional state when things collapse.
I look at this like upgrading a smartphone's operating system.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Think about it. Right now, you, the listener, might be running a W-2 paycheck mental OS. It's highly optimized for one thing, which is survival.
It's just keeping the lights on.
Right. It runs the scripts, perfectly wake up, endure the commute, nod at the boss, go home, numb out with Netflix, sleep, repeat.
The classic loop.
But if you try to launch a high-performance exponential fortune-building app on that old W-2 OS, the system violently crashes.
Freezes up completely.
Exactly. You get overwhelmed, you face one rejection, and you just spiral. Personal development is the mandatory firmware upgrade required to even run the new software of your life.
That analogy holds up perfectly under scrutiny. You cannot demand a new tier of external output without upgrading the internal processing power. The system will literally overheat.
But I want to push back here, or at least play the skeptic on behalf of the listener for a second.
Sure, go for it.
This all sounds incredibly abstract. How does someone tangibly measure personal development in this context? Is it a metric? Is it the number of books read? Because it feels like a very squishy concept when we're supposed to be talking about building a profitable business.
No, it's not squishy at all. It's highly observable, it's physiological, and it's behavioral.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's use the most common friction point in any part-time business, sales, and communication. Let's say your enterprise requires you to pitch a service to a stranger.
Which almost every single business fundamentally does. I mean, if you can't sell, you don't eat.
Right. So when you attempt this with your old W-2 OS, the physical and emotional response to the interaction is highly inefficient.
You're nervous.
You stutter. Your heart rate spikes. You implicitly apologize for taking up their time. And when they inevitably say no, your amygdala treats it like a physical threat.
Like a lion is chasing you.
Exactly. You take the rejection as a referendum on your profound worth as a human being, and you are emotionally incapacitated for 3 days. You stop making calls. That is the baseline.
Ouch. That is painfully relatable. The rejection hangover. We've all been there.
But here is the tangible, measurable metric of personal development. You don't quit. You expose yourself to it again. You study the mechanics of persuasion.
You put in the reps.
You listen to a breakdown on objection handling during your commute instead of, a true crime podcast. And 3 months later, you make the exact same pitch. But the underlying hardware has changed.
The OS is updated.
This time, you hold eye contact. You speak from the diaphragm. When they offer an objection, you don't panic. You recognize the pattern, pivot smoothly, and address the underlying friction.
And what if they still say no?
When they still say no, you smile, shake their hand, and immediately dial the next prospect without losing a single ounce of emotional momentum.
Because your cortisol didn't spike?
Exactly. The physiological threat response has been conquered. That gap, the vast canyon between the terrified, emotionally fragile novice and the unbothered, strategically competent communicator that is personal development.
That is so tangible.
And the crucial insight here is that this upgraded firmware doesn't just apply to your side hustle. It bleeds universally into your entire life.
Well, for sure. How could it not?
You suddenly start speaking up in W-2 strategy meetings. You set firmer boundaries with your spouse. Your physical posture changes. You have made a fortune in your character, which makes the fortune in your bank account an absolute inevitability.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. The money is just the lagging indicator of the character upgrade.
Precisely.
So, assuming you're ready to upgrade your OS, let's get into the actual mechanics of the magic. How do you execute this in reality? The book emphasizes two massive strategic pillars: aggressive time management and mastering the law of averages.
Both are critical.
Let's start with time, because frankly, this is where most people tap out.
Yeah, the time strategy requires a radical audit of how you view the margins of your day.
The margin.
The mathematics of time are fixed for everyone, 168 hours in a week. If you worked 40 and sleep roughly 56, you have 72 hours of discretionary time remaining.
72 hours. That's a lot of time.
It is. Ron's philosophy demands that you stop looking at those 72 hours as a monolithic block of just recovery time and start identifying them as prime, unexploited real estate.
Finding the pockets.
Yes, evenings, Saturday mornings, Sunday nights, the W-2 lunch hour. You don't need another 40 hours to build a fortune. You need 5 to 15 highly focused, ruthless, uninterrupted hours a week. It requires treating your calendar with the reverence of a CEO.
Okay, stop right there. I have to hit the brakes and challenge this.
Okay.
Because this is where the theory hits the wall of human exhaustion. The listener we described in the intro is already depleted. The day job drains them. The commute drains them.
Sure.
Doesn't adding 15 hours of intense, focused work on top of that, even strategically, doesn't that risk catastrophic burnout? Aren't we just prescribing an elaborate recipe for a nervous breakdown?
That is the most common and logical pushback, but it fundamentally misunderstands the biochemistry of human energy.
Oh, so?
We have this flawed model where we view human energy like a smartphone battery. Like it starts at 100% when we wake up, and every single activity just drains it linearly until we collapse.
Right, like a gauge slowly going down.
But human energy is not purely mechanical. It is largely psychological and heavily tied to dopamine and autonomy. We have to violently separate the concepts of draining work and energizing work.
Okay, unpack that. What is the difference at a neurochemical level?
Draining work is alienated labor. It is work that lacks autonomy, lacks personal meaning, and lacks a clear asymmetric upside for your own future.
So, most day jobs.
For the vast majority of the population, their W-2 job falls right into this category. It severely taxes the nervous system because you are operating strictly out of obligation. You are expending energy to suppress your own boredom and frustration.
Right, it's the psychological weight of sitting in a meaningless 1-hour Zoom meeting that, could have been an email. That exhausts you far more than a 1-hour intense workout.
Exactly. It drains your soul. But the part-time enterprise, because it is entirely self-directed, because it is aligned with your internal vision, and because the upside belongs exclusively to you, it acts as a dopamine engine.
It feeds you.
It often generates far more energy than it consumes.
It's generative, not extractive.
Precisely. Having a clear, autonomous vision physically alters a person's stamina. When you walk through your front door at 6 p.m., your body might feel fatigued from the commute. But the moment you sit down at your desk to execute a strategy for your fortune, a secondary neurochemical wind kicks in.
You catch a second wind.
The excitement of self-determination overrides the somatic fatigue. True burnout rarely comes from working too many hours. Burnout comes from working too many hours on things that offer zero return on your soul.
That completely flips the script. It's not about the sheer volume of hours. It's about the alignment and the autonomy of those hours.
Absolutely.
So let's pivot to the second mechanical strategy, which honestly feels like the secret math behind the entire philosophy, the law of averages.
Oh, this is the game changer. The law of averages is the ultimate psychological shield for an entrepreneur.
A shield. I like that.
It is the transition from viewing outcomes as deeply personal, emotional events to viewing them as stochastic mathematical inevitabilities. The premise is starkly simple. If you repeat an action enough times under similar conditions, a ratio will reliably appear.
Let's ground this in a real scenario for the listener.
Okay, let's go back to our sales pitch example. You launch your part-time service. You pitch 10 prospects. 9 of them reject you. Some ignore you. Some laugh. Some say no politely. But one person says yes.
Hold on, I'm going to push back hard here again.
Right.
You were making that sound incredibly clinical and easy. Human beings are not algorithms. Surviving 9 brutal, humiliating rejections to get 1 yes will shatter a normal person's confidence before they ever reach that statistical success point.
It's definitely hard at first.
How does Rohn expect an exhausted person to just math away their bruised ego? You can't just tell someone, hey, it's just math when they feel like a failure.
You are absolutely right that the initial emotional impact is severe, but that is exactly where the law of averages acts as cognitive behavioral therapy.
How does it do that?
The reason those 9 rejections hurt so much is because the novice believes the goal was to get a 100% conversion rate.
Ah, they expected everyone to say yes.
Right. The novice believes a no means the product is bad or they are fundamentally flawed. But once you survive the first 10 and you secure that one yes, the math reveals itself. You now have your ratio. Your baseline ratio is 1 in 10.
So the paradigm shifts. The goal is no longer perfection.
The goal is volume. Once you know your ratio is 1 in 10, the strategy isn't to agonizingly figure out how to manipulate 10 out of 10 people into saying yes. That is a fool's errand.
You drive yourself crazy.
The strategy is simply to pitch 100 people as efficiently as possible so you can mathematically collect your 10 yeses.
Oh, wow. That completely strips the emotional power away from the rejection.
It neuters the rejection entirely. Rejection ceases to be a referendum on your worth. It transforms into a mandatory data point on the timeline to a yes.
It's just a stepping stone.
If you know your ratio is 1 in 10, then every time someone says no, you don't spiral into despair. You internally say, excellent, I am statistically one step closer to the inevitable yes.
It's exactly like professional baseball.
Yes, perfect analogy.
We look at the greatest hitters of all time, the Hall of Famers, the legends making hundreds of millions of dollars. They bat .300. That means they walk back to the dugout having failed 70% of the time. They strike out, they ground out, they look foolish against a curveball. But they don't sit in the dugout questioning their existence.
They don't have an existential crisis.
No. They know their swing mechanics. They know if they just step up to the plate enough times, the math guarantees a hit.
That is a flawless analogy. And here is where the law of averages creates a feedback loop with personal development.
How so?
Your ratio of 1 in 10 is just your starting baseline. As you upgrade your W2OS, as you refine your tonality, as you study your market, your ratio inevitably improves.
You get better at swinging the bat.
Exactly. You go from 1 in 10 to 2 in 10. Suddenly, the exact same amount of time and effort yields double the fortune. You don't have to work harder. You just became a more sophisticated asset.
I love how these concepts interlock. It's so elegant, but we have a glaring variable we haven't accounted for yet.
The social aspect.
Yes, you don't build this fortune in a vacuum. You are operating in the real world, surrounded by a complex web of social relationships. What happens when your newfound discipline, your weekend focus, and your upgraded OS collide with a spouse or family or a friend group who really like the old, compliant W-2 version of you?
That is where the philosophy meets the brutal reality of sociology. When you begin to aggressively change your trajectory, you act as a mirror to everyone around you.
And people don't always like what they see.
And for the people who are terrified of change, who are deeply entrenched in their own W2OS, your momentum makes them profoundly uncomfortable. Rohn uses the ancient parable of the sower and the seed to prepare the entrepreneur for this inevitable social friction.
Let's unpack the sower and the seed. It's a classic, but how does it apply mechanically to a side hustle?
The parable essentially maps out human behavior. The sower represents you, distributing your ideas, your product, or simply your new ethos. Some seeds you scatter fall immediately on the hardened path, and the birds swoop down and eat them before they can even take root.
The birds being our friends and family.
The birds are the cynics, the naysayers, the W2 fundamentalists. They're the friends who mock your effort, who tell you side hustles are scams, who try to drag you back to the bar on a Friday night.
They just peck at your ideas.
They swoop in to steal your conviction. The absolute masterstroke lesson of the parable is this. The sower does not drop his seed bag and go chase the birds.
Don't chase the birds. That is a phenomenal visual.
If you spend your limited margins of time arguing with cynical people, trying to intellectually dismantle their skepticism, you are no longer building your fortune. You're just a crazy person running around a field screaming at birds.
Which achieves absolutely nothing.
Nothing. You must ruthlessly focus only on what you control, which is the distribution of your effort. Let the birds fly away.
What about the other seeds?
Some of your effort will fall on rocky ground. People who get excited to partner with you for a week and then vanish. Some falls among thorns, people who let the chaotic anxieties of life choke out their ambition. But mathematically, some seed will always fall on fertile ground. Your sole responsibility is to keep sowing until you find it.
I want to dive deeper into the sociology of the birds, because this is where the emotional carnage usually happens for beginners. Let's introduce another framework here. The bucket of crabs mentality.
Oh, the crabs, yeah.
If you put a single crab in a ducket, it will easily latch onto the rim and pull itself out to freedom. But if you put a dozen crabs in that same bucket, none of them will ever escape.
Nope.
Why? Because the moment one crab starts making real upward progress toward the rim, the others will literally reach up, grab it by the legs, and violently yank it back down into the pile.
It is a dark but distressingly accurate model of certain peer group dynamics.
My question is, why do humans do this? When a listener starts building their part-time fortune, do their friends genuinely maliciously want them to fail? Or is it something deeper? Is it cognitive dissonance? Are they just terrified that your success will shine a painfully bright light on their own wasted potential?
It is almost entirely the latter. driven by identity maintenance and cognitive dissonance.
Hmm.
It is rarely mustache-twirling malice.
Okay, explain that.
Think about the homeostasis of a friend group. If your peer group has spent the last 5 years bonding every Friday night over beers, aggressively complaining about how terrible your bosses are, how rigged the economy is, and how impossible it is to get ahead, you have formed a social contract based on shared victimhood.
The camaraderie of the W-2 trench.
Exactly. The moment you stop complaining, skip the bar, and start actively building a fortune, you unilaterally breach the social contract. Your upward mobility is a profound psychological threat to them.
Because it invalidates their excuses.
It forces them to look in the mirror and ask, if they are climbing out of the bucket with the exact same 24 hours I have, what is my excuse? Confronting their own stagnation is psychologically agonizing.
They attack you instead of themselves.
So the defense mechanism kicks in. It is far easier for them to yank you back into the bucket, to tell you that you're being scammed, that you're a workaholic, that you've changed, than it is for them to confront their own complacency.
This is critical for you, the listener, to hear, because if you aren't prepared for the crabs, the betrayal will completely derail you. Let's put the listener directly into the crosshairs of this scenario.
Okay.
Think about your phone right now. It's Friday night, 6 p.m. You just got home from the W-2 job. You've scheduled 6:30 to 9:30 to work on your part-time enterprise. The phone buzzes. It's your core group of friends. Hey, we're all at the pub. You need to come down here. It's been a long week.
Classic scenario.
If you go, the business stalls. If you say no, you face the wrath of the crabs. What is the precise mechanical response to handle this without isolating yourself entirely, but protecting the fortune?
This is where theory becomes practice. It requires a framework of unbreakable boundaries and precise communication.
Step 1.
Step 1 is internal imbust. You have to run a quick ROI calculation on your why. If your vision of financial independence is weaker than your fear of temporary social awkwardness, you'll go to the pub.
So the internal OS has to be rock solid first.
Yes. Step 2 is the actual text message you send back. And this is vital. You do not over-explain, you do not justify, and you do not ask for permission.
You have to be firm.
You reply with polite finality. You text, I would love to see you all, but I have a prior commitment tonight that I absolutely cannot move. Have a drink for me, and let's lock in time next weekend.
Notice what you intentionally left out of that text. You didn't say, I have to stay home and work on my side hustle.
Absolutely not. The moment you say, I'm working, you open a negotiation loop.
The crabs see an opening.
The crabs will immediately exploit it. They will text back, oh, take one night off. You work too hard. The business will be there tomorrow. Don't be so obsessed.
They try to wear you down.
By framing it simply as a non-negotiable prior commitment, which is entirely truthful, it is a commitment to your future self. You close the door to debate.
It's boundary setting 101.
And here's the harsh truth that Rohn implies: you must be willing to disappoint your friends in the short term to avoid bitterly disappointing yourself in the long term.
That is a tough pill to swallow.
It is. But the people who genuinely belong in your next chapter will eventually respect your discipline, even if it baffles them at first. The ones who furiously resent your absence were never anchored to your potential. They were anchored to your shared mediocrity.
Disappoint your friends in the short term to avoid disappointing yourself in the long term. That is the hidden tax on the magic right there.
It's the price of admission.
Okay, so we have upgraded the OS. We are leveraging the W-2 as an angel investor. We are executing via the law of averages. And we are successfully dodging the birds and the crabs. Let's look at the horizon.
The destination.
Section 5 of our deep dive, the ultimate destination. What does the success of this part-time magic actually yield? We need to redefine financial independence.
Defining the target is mandatory. Otherwise, you are just running on a treadmill of endless ambition. And Rohn's definition of financial independence is uniquely pragmatic. It completely bypasses the Instagram-era delusion of what wealth looks like.
Right. The cultural default for financial independence involves yachts in Monaco, private jets, and $100 million in liquidity, which is a standard so absurdly high it paralyzes 99% of people from ever taking the first step.
Exactly. It's cartoonish. Rohn defines financial independence as a very precise, achievable mathematical milestone.
What's the formula?
It is the exact crossover point where the profits from your part-time fortune equal or comfortably exceed the W-2 wages from your full-time living.
The equilibrium point.
Let's use clean numbers. Let's say your full-time job pays you $6,000 a month. You spend 3 years systematically working on yourself, refining your skills, honoring the law of averages, absorbing rejections, and slowly scaling your part-time enterprise.
Grinding it out.
The very month your side business generates $6,000 in net profit, you have crossed the threshold into true financial independence.
Because the existential dread is suddenly gone?
The absolute eradication of financial anxiety. You have successfully built a parallel, redundant economy for your own household. You are no longer held hostage by a single point of failure.
Okay, let's explore the psychology of that moment, because I have a massive structural question.
Sure.
Once those lines cross, once the part-time fortune eclipses the W-2 living, isn't the immediate logical next step to dramatically storm into your boss's office, hand in your resignation, and scale the business full-time? Doesn't staying at the job ruin the whole magic of it being a part-time endeavor?
This is where we uncover the most beautiful paradox of the entire philosophy. Let's really analyze the psychology of that crossover Monday.
Walk me through it.
For a decade, you walked into that office building because you had to. You needed their capital to survive. That inherent dependency creates a subtle but constant dynamic of subservience.
You bite your tongue a lot.
You swallow your pride, you laugh at the terrible jokes, you accept the arbitrary deadlines because the threat of eviction hangs over your head.
Indentured servitude with a dental plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the Monday morning after you hit the crossover point, when you pull into the parking lot, knowing with absolute mathematical certainty that you do not need a single dollar from this corporation anymore.
You would feel bulletproof. You would walk through the lobby like you own the building.
Your entire relationship with reality shifts. You are no longer a hostage to the wage. You are a volunteer.
A volunteer. That is crazy to think about.
You are offering your services entirely out of choice. If management becomes toxic, if the demands become unreasonable, you don't internalize the stress. You just smile, knowing you hold the ultimate trump card. You can walk away at any given second, and your lifestyle will not dip by a single percentage point.
It is the purest form of leverage a human being can possess.
And here is the fascinating twist. Many people absolutely will quit. They will take that part-time momentum, deploy their newly freed 40 hours into the enterprise, and scale it aggressively. But a surprising number of people, they might choose to stay.
Stay at the W-2 job they spent years trying to escape. Why on earth would they do that?
Because they often discover they didn't actually hate the work itself. They didn't hate the colleagues or the structure of the industry. What they violently hated was the feeling of being trapped.
The lack of options.
They hated the dependency. Once the financial pressure is completely neutralized, the W-2 job becomes a playground. They might find they genuinely enjoy the social interaction of the office, while their part-time fortune acts as a silent compounding fortress of wealth in the background.
That's incredible.
The magic, ultimately, is not the act of quitting. The magic is acquiring the unshakable power of optionality.
Wow. That completely reframes the entire journey. You aren't grinding on the weekends just to burn your corporate badge. You are grinding to execute a leveraged buyout of your own autonomy.
A leveraged buyout of your own autonomy.
Exactly. You are shifting from a position of chronic vulnerability to a position of absolute, unassailable strength. And you engineered all of it in the overlooked margins of your life, driven by the ruthless application of personal development.
It is a blueprint that demands immense discipline, but the architectural soundness of it is undeniable. It requires a profound respect for the economic reality of time.
Let's weave all of this together, because the sheer density of what we've unpacked today requires a mental summary.
It's a lot to process.
We didn't just walk through chapters, we deconstructed a systemic shift in how to operate in the modern economy, relying heavily on the brilliant framing provided by Tauhid Fariduni, Amir Riza Hashemi, and Raminder Gahi in the Zenaviz edition.
Their translation work really shines a light on these structures.
It really does. We dismantled the myth that your W-2 job is your enemy, and instead reframed it as your angel investor funding your runway.
We established that the business itself is secondary to the mandatory OS upgrade of your own character. We explored how upgrading your resilience and communication skills fundamentally rewires your physiological response to stress.
We looked at the cold, comforting mathematics of the log averages, proving that you don't need to be perfect, you just need to survive enough rejections to establish your ratio, turning no's into mere data points.
We navigated the sociology of the crabs and the birds, cementing the strategy of firm boundaries, polite finality, and refusing to negotiate your future with people who are committed to their own complacency.
And finally, we arrived at the crossover point, redefining financial independence not as extreme, absurd luxury, but as the mathematical eradication of anxiety and the birth of ultimate optionality.
So the application falls entirely on you, the listener. I
Okay.
challenge you to look at your calendar for the next 7 days. Do not look at it as a monolithic prison sentence of exhaustion.
Audit the margins.
Where are the hidden 5 to 10 hours? Are they bleeding out into doom scrolling, into passive consumption, into arguing with birds? Those hours belong exclusively to you. You possess the W-2 seed capital. You have the theoretical blueprint. The only remaining variable in the equation is your decision to initiate the internal OS upgrade.
And as you head back into your W-2 angel investor's office tomorrow morning, or as you sit in traffic contemplating the margins of your week, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on.
Let's hear it.
If you actually execute this, if you survive the rejections, build the part-time fortune, and hit that mathematical crossover point of true financial independence, would your very first move be to dramatically quit your day job, or would you suddenly realize that the true prize you were hunting all along wasn't the exit, but simply the exhilarating quiet power of finally having a choice?